In this video, we're going to talk about filtering, guys. So with filtering with Tableau, data can be organized and simplified by using these filters. So there will be multiple ways to create filters, and filters basically restrict the data, some of the data. So if I filter, for example, certain departments out, they won't be showing in the view. This can be very important to improve the performance and visuals and give you the desired information easily and clearly in your data. You can also use it to highlight key data in your analysis. Before you begin filtering in the Tableau software, it's very vital to know the different types of filters that exist with Tableau. This might require a little bit of memorization, but don't worry, as we are working with Tableau, we are going to use different filters, and thus we are going to hopefully be able to grasp the usage of different filters. So let's start by talking about different filters, definitions, and see how filters can make it easy for us to focus on relevant information in large data sets or tables of data. So let's begin. As you can see, we have many different types of filters. The first one is the extract filters. Second is the data source filters. If you guys remember the word extract and data source, how can I go to the data source again here? Sorry. Here is the data source. When we collect, here, the connection, extract. Do you guys remember that? Extract connection? We kind of filter. Data source filters. So there are filters on the data source level. Context filters. I'm going to talk about context filters when we create dashboards in particular. Dimension filters, we already talked about this in class. Measure filters, we also talked about it in class. Date filters, table calculation filters, we're going to talk about it in future classes. Let's talk about the extract filters. Extract filters are something here, has to do with the extract here. And as you can see with the extract, you will be able to create filters and edit this extract. So when you hit the edit button, you will be able to filter here based on adding here certain items that you would like to filter in and out, and then how the data should be extracted. So this is filtering in. All right. So for now, I'm going to keep it as a live connection. So when you connect to data, you can choose the extract, and you can, in fact, click edit and then get this dialog box, and whatever data that you filter here, order date, you can select, for example, order date, and set the date to be a range from a certain date to an end date. This way you will only give the relevant data to this date. So for example, it's a huge data, and you would like only to work with data of year 2018 for whatever reason, or for the past 3 years or so. So it works similarly to the filter dialog that we've done in class, is that it's relevant date and all that. Relative date and all that. So as part of this process, you can filter out data that isn't relevant to your analysis. So anything outside this date will be filtered out. So you are querying here the data source that has dates or data for the last 20 years, for example, but you only want, so for example, you are working on the data set that contains the last year's worth of data, but you just want the last 5 years. So this is relative date, as I told you. So these are extract filters, and these extract filters are ideal for this kind of task. So right at the source, right at the very beginning of working with Tableau, you can choose extract, edit, and then you can add here a filter on a date, for example. I don't want to add now a filter or anything, but for time limitation only. But here's order date, for example, and then you can select based. It is quite intriguing here. that it gives you the filter as if it is, because I think I have a problem here. Wait a minute. The date here, I need, every time I have to fix it on this computer. Where is the date? The date here is a string. It's like a dimension. The order date. Yeah, I knew that. You know why, guys? You know how I knew that it was a string? Because the dialog box that I was presented with, yeah, here, wait a minute. The dialog box I was presented with was similar to that of a dimension. So let's do it again. Order date. Aha. Now, do you see the difference, guys? So now it has the range of dates. It is totally completely different. So now I can start with a certain relative date, maybe, if I want. So I want in terms of years, in terms of months and weeks, relevant or anchor, relevant to a certain date, for example. So that is how you filter out dates. And with experience, as we're filtering in different views and exercises in class, with practice, you will, as I have noticed that there's something wrong, and I knew that the dialog box, this dialog box is for like general wild card and all that, and top whatever. This kind of dialog box is for dimensions, not for measures or dates. So you will start developing this sense soon, if you haven't already had it. So these are the extract filters. This is actually not extract filters here. This is the data source filters. I apologize. Let me fix this. Let me fix this slide as we speak, guys. Sorry, I had to prep many slides this this semester. So here I'm gonna put here data source. The data source filter. So with the data source filter, guys, we reduce the amount of data being fed into Tableau and restrict what data viewer, what data the viewer sees. So it's same as extract, but on the data source level, and the viewer can view. What do I mean by the data source level? It's like the viewer, what the viewer can see. This is kind of like it's like permission, and it is given by the server administrator or the system administrator. So basically, you can edit the data source filters. Let me check. I kind of like, where do we edit the data source filters? Do I mention anything here? Edit data source filters. I have a feeling this not here. In fact, you can add filters here, and this is the edit data source filters. You see? So when you have the extract, you edit the extract filter here, and then you have the filters add. Let me just switch to live again. This add filter here under filters add is dedicated for edit data source filters, and you can add a data source filter accordingly. So this will restrict the viewer from viewing certain data, but you will still have a live connection. So usually we use the filters, add a filter with the same situation as I told you. Like for example, we have an order date, and I would like a certain date relative to an anchor date. So I can do that here in terms of years, quarters, or whatever. And then I will still have a live connection to the data. And as you know, the live connection is where the data is where it is, and I'm not having a copy. I don't have a local copy of the data in the workbook, even though every time I open up the workbook, it's there. So this is what we call it here, a data source filter. So a data source filter could be applied with either the live connection or with the extract connection. Yeah, but the extract filter, or the extract filter we can call it, it only happens when we use the extract connection. Okay, so this is also might be some of possible questions that could be posed for the Tableau certification or for our Tableau class. So the data source, and again, the data source filters could be applied for either extract or live connection. Okay, I have here talked about data source filters. Now context filters. Context filters, even if you don't understand it fully now, don't worry about it. I will show you when we're going to use this context filter in more details when we work with dashboards. So for now, I just wanted to let you know that in any field, you can right click and you can add to context. When you add to context, then you will create a filter. This filter will order the way that operations are executed with Tableau. So there's an order of operations, there's an order of filters executed in Tableau. So that when you want to filter out certain data, before filtering out the data as under a certain rule or condition, this gives different results. So all filters in Tableau are computed independently. If you want one filter to be applied before other filters, make it a context filter. So whatever you want to execute first, you're gonna set it as a context filter, or put it in context, or add it to a context. So for example, if you have two-dimension filters, one on region and another one for the top 10 on products. This is the most actually popular example. So you have one on region and one on the top 10 products. What does that mean? Both filters will apply to the entire data set. But if you want to see the top 10 products in each region, which I think what you're anticipating, so you want to see the regions as is, and you want to see the 10 products in each regions, not the 10 products and then the top 10 products and then give me the regions for them, yeah? If the regions are actually part of the filtered regions in the second filter. So what happens here, you can set region filter as the context filter, meaning first of all, give me the regions, filter out the regions that I'm not using, and in these regions that I would like to filter, I would like the top 10 products. Not the top 10 products in general across different regions, and then after the second filter is applied with this, which is selected two regions, for example, whatever top globally with all the regions, the top products will be showing if they are under the regions filtered out. You see the difference? So basically, in this case, you use the context filter. Dimension filters, as you can see, this is the filter card of a dimension filter on a region. So you will have all the dimension, this dimension card filter. Please memorize one thing or recall one thing, or try to pay attention to one thing here, that you have all the categories and then you have all in the checkbox. I will explain more about the style of the filter. You need to also memorize a little bit about the style of the filters. So we have dimensions containing discrete categorical data. So filtering this type of field generally involves selecting the values to include or exclude. For example, the use of dimension filter to show products that have low sales in specific regions. And this is a measure filter. Measure filter comes into sliders in the filters card in the view. You can see that you're showing only products that have sales, for example, in between certain ranges. I'm sorry, I put here more than 10,000, but it's actually between these two ranges. The order date also, the date filter also has like a slider kind of form, and it has range of dates. It has relative dates, and it has exact dates. I'm going to talk about exact dates when we're working with the Gantt chart with Tableau. And exact date is very important when you have a date and time. So you need the exact time. All right, the table calculations filter, you probably won't grasp the table calculations filter right now. You're going to grasp or have a better understanding of it when we talk about table calculations in more detail. But basically, this is a this is a calculated field because it has a triangle here. And then you can set filters, put these calculated fields into the filter. So basically you can filter out based on calculated sales or sales being, or let's say, what else? The return on investment, ROI. The ROI is the cost over or expenses over revenue. So if you calculate or create a calculated field like that, and you can filter based on being greater than a certain number, less than a certain number, and so forth, then you can add it into the filter card. So you will have a better understanding of calculations filter in the future. The order of operations is very important. As you can see, the extract filters come first, then the data source filters. All right. So please understand that these are some of the questions that you might have to answer in the quiz or in the certification examination. The extract filters are number one. This is the first thing that I talked about, extract filters. So they are also in order, they come as first. Then the data source filters come second in execution. Context filters, of course, because actually you add the context, meaning execute me first. So context filters, then dimensions, then measures. It's quite interesting, isn't it? First, you slice the data, then you aggregate it. Isn't it? Isn't this the way when in general? So this is including and excluding the level of detail, data blending and all that. This is measure filters, you for forecasting table calculations, clusters and all that. And lastly is the table calculation kind of filters. So the strongest is the extract, then the data source, context, dimension, measure, and last thing is table calculations. Perfect. So in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about filtering data. So I'll see you in the next video.